is a presentation style that was developed by a couple of architects in Japan. And even though you can tell from their names, the architects are not Japanese. They're living in Japan. They developed this presentation style there. So Pecha Kucha means chit chat in Japanese. And it's designed to be a very conversational presentation style. I've seen this demonstrated with, like, here was my motorcycle trip that I did, and I want to tell people about it and have a nicer way than showing 1,000 picture slideshow. And I want to tell them about the trip that I took. My students did this about or winter holidays around the world. And so you're going to see a little bit of my demo that I did for that. My husband is a high school Spanish teacher, and his level 4s did this as their Spanish final one year. And he did it all with one class period. So it's really flexible. You can easily differentiate this for your students by changing the number of slides you require, or changing the amount of time that they have on each slide, or changing the amount of time that they have to prepare their presentation. But at its base, it's designed to be a 5-minute presentation using 20 slides that last 15 seconds each. And they're on a timer. So instead of the students standing there and reading their slides, it's going to be them giving their talk, giving their information, and the slides are pictures that support what they're talking about. And so all you see on the screen is a picture, or at least very minimal text, so that the pictures tell the story while you are listening to the presenter. It's almost like training them to do a TED Talk is really what it is. So I'm going to show you a couple of different examples, and then I'm going to show you what that looks like. And all of these examples are in the files that are going to be shared with you. And I really welcome you to jump in with questions at any time. So here's what I did for my middle schoolers as their sort of winter project that we did right before we went on winter break. They were to create a Pecha Kucha presentation about how one country in the world celebrates a holiday in December. I teach medieval European history, and we are on a trimester schedule. So when we go to winter break, it's in the middle of our grading period, and it doesn't make sense to start a new unit. And I don't need to give them a final. So I did this. We started on Monday with them learning what Pecha Kucha was and learning how to do it. I gave them a few pointers. I gave them the directions. I let them go. Tuesday, they were putting their work together. And then in class on Wednesday, Thursday, it's our one day that we're on block schedule. They broke into small groups, so no more than 5, and presented to each other. And then the only task that they had while they were listening to each other's presentations was afterwards. They just had to give the presenter feedback, and it had to be positive because everyone already knows the things that they didn't like about their stuff. But they had to tell the presenter what's one thing that I learned and what's one thing that was really great about your presentation. And that's what the feedback looked like. I want you to know where it is we're talking about, so that it requires their attention. And those are the directions that I had up on the board, and it's basically the directions that I gave them. Research, I gave them some structures, like this is the kind of thing that you should be finding about your holiday. Basic stuff: when, where, why does it happen? What are the traditions? What are the celebrations? When people have a holiday, there are special things that happen. I didn't let them start making their presentation until they could show me a script, because they want to get bogged down in finding just the right pictures right away. And instead, I want them to think about, what is the story you're trying to tell, arrange your story, and then find the picture that best supports your story. So training them to do research, training them in how to tell the story, and training them in finding the best picture that's going to support that. We learned so many cool things from this presentation. Iceland is definitely a place you should go for their Christmas holidays. It's hysterical. Look up the Christmas cat and the 13 Christmas boys. We all learned a lot. The biggest thing that really focuses their attention, but is also a challenge for them, is to use words only when necessary and to make sure that that is as few words as possible. My next door teacher neighbor just did this as a geography presentation for her seventh grade students. They each had to research a different country. And I love the example that she made that I'm going to show you in a few minutes. And then before they presented, they had to practice their presentation using their script and to use a stopwatch to help them. So there was a lot of practice built in on this. So here's my example, and I'm going to open my screen that way to show you. So I'm not going to tell you this whole presentation, obviously, but I want you to get an idea of what it looks like when someone is giving a Pecha Kucha. So if you are presenting in Google Slides, the way to get something on an automatic timer is to set it up in presentation mode, to go down here and to these three little dots, and then you click autoplay. You set it up to be every 15 seconds, and then you have to press play when you're ready for it to start. And I have this whole tree on a slide where I can have it and show them, like, this is how you get it started. So I'm going to press play, and I'm going to tell you about my presentation. So this is my presentation on Christmas in the United States of America. I did this so that no one else could do it because I want them to learn about holidays in other parts. As you can see from the picture, Christmas in the US is a lot. It's sometimes great, and sometimes people feel like it's overwhelming. It is technically on the 25th of December, but we really extend it. It takes up a full month, and that's even if you only start at Thanksgiving, and some people are already excited to put up Christmas decorations right now. But there's a reason why we celebrate Christmas. It's to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. His name means God with us, and that is a huge deal to Christians around the world. And there are a lot of both Christian and pagan customs that are involved with Christmas. You might see nativity scenes. That's a Christian custom. But you also see Christmas trees, and that's something that started in Europe well before Christianity came in. So we still see those nature decorations like mistletoe and holly and evergreen, because those are symbols that the pagans in Europe used to denote new life and the fact that life will return. It's not going to stay winter forever. Saint Nicholas is an important figure at Christmas, and he looks like he does now only because Thomas Nast made this drawing in the 1850s. It didn't look like that before then. The way Saint Nicholas looks now came from that book, The Night Before Christmas. That's also where reindeer, as Santa's drivers, come from. Rudolph was started by the Montgomery Ward Company in the 1950s. We didn't have Rudolph before then. We also have a tradition of giving holiday parties. You can have that at home. You can have it at work. You can have it at school. We love to get together. We eat certain things. We maybe open presents, maybe do a Secret Santa. And one thing that we like to do is take pictures with Santa, and you can see me right there. And that's usually where I stop my demo for my students, because they've got an idea at that point of there's no script on the screen. The words are just there to help guide you and to help guide your audience about what you're talking about. I also like to point out to them, once I finish that a way that I helped myself build this presentation was when I was thinking about my script, I thought about, okay, what is important about Christmas? And I used colors on the background of my slide to help me section off what section is what. So this first section was the basics: who, what, when, and some decorations and some traditional figures. That has a white border. Then I went into this section that's yellow. That was about traditions like pictures with Santa, holiday parties, carols, putting up decorations, and watching movies. This section that was red was all about food that's typical around Christmas time. And then this blue section was on traditions. And I gave them the same kind of suggestion. That way you can see, like, my presentation moves and it has sections. Even though you're not dividing it that way. You don't have title slides. You're just using that text to track what you're doing and to guide you. So even on that slide, which I didn't bother to finish because they got the idea, I know that page is going to be about cookies. I know I'm going to talk about cookies there. I know I want to find some pictures of cookies that I would want to make or I would want to share at Christmas time. So I'm just going to pause right here and ask if anybody has any questions.
If anyone has any questions, you can either unmute yourself or you can go ahead and drop them in the chat.
Corinne, are you seeing anything in the chat?
Mark is saying this looks both good and promising.
I'm glad you feel that way. I'm glad you feel that way. This is just one version, so I'm going to show you, or one example of how to do it. So I'm going to show you a couple more variations that people around me have done that I think you'll get excited about.
I think you're good to move on.
All right, I'm going to keep going. So that's what it looked like when I did it with my middle schoolers. I gave them really 3 days. So 1 day to learn what it was and to start their process of research, 1 day to put it together, 1 day to present. As I said, you can really differentiate this for the level of your students. When my husband did this with his high schoolers in upper level Spanish, he did it as a final. And so it all happened in the same class period. They had 90 minutes. He had students choose a number at random to correspond to 3 different topics. So he had a selection of topics available. He gave them 5 minutes to investigate the 3 topics that they'd chosen at random, choose one then to research and present. So this was his way of being able to work in all of the many cultural points that he felt like he wasn't able to reach during the Spanish portion of class, but that he wanted them to understand about Spanish culture. He gave them 45 minutes to research and build their presentation. They only had to do 10 slides instead of 20. He gave them 20 seconds per slide for a total 3-minute presentation. Had 1 slide for the title, 1 slide for resources, for 12 slides total, and they presented in groups of 3. And then instead of giving feedback, as I asked my students to do, he had peers score them from 1 to 3 based on, was it long enough, how engaging was it, and their presentation skills. Are they engaging with their audience? Are they just reading their script monotonously, or was it a fun presentation? This is that part where I said I pulled this out so that you could see how to do autoplay. And if your students are making their presentations in Canva, in the documents, there is a very helpful page that our tech department made that shows you how to do the same thing for Canva presentations. And that's where these files are. I'm going to show you what my neighbor teacher did to for her students. She just created this after seeing this presentation at our August training. Another teacher who also has used this with her 6th grade leadership students. They have to write an autobiography about themselves. And so she had them, instead of just reading their script, she had them create a presentation like this. And then our 7th and 8th grade executive essentials class made presentations like this for life after college. What are some different options for, or life after high school? What can you do with yourself after high school? There's not just college, there's the military, there's work, there's all kinds of things that you can do. So a lot of people in my community have started to grab this. These are the directions that my next door neighbor made for her 7th grade history class. So she's also got about the same timeline. They're presenting in class. So hers are just presenting it to the whole class because they're all trying to learn about these different areas. She also did 20 slides for 15 seconds each to make a 5-minute presentation. They had to pick one country in Asia or Africa, and there were 10 things that she absolutely wanted them to know. And then there were 10 other choices of like, tell us which 10 you want to know about. And then she had the same directions that we had. So this is all in your files. And this is the really handy document that our tech department made for how to set up your automatic timing. So these are the directions that I've given. These are directions my partner has given. So let me show you what her example documents that she made were so great. I loved what she made. And this is in the files that you're going to get. So I just said, write a script, and I wanted them to do it on notebook paper. Our 7th graders need a lot more structure than that. So she had them, here's the box. Here's the box for this. Here's the box for population. Here's the box for literacy rate. What are you going to say about these things? And really structured it out. And then what are you going to say about each of these things? And it is very easy for her then to say, nope, can't start working on the presentation yet. I don't see this. And then here's her example of what would that look like? This is the level of what I'm looking for from you. So hers is a lot more closed-ended than mine was. And then she made this example, which I thought was great, but I don't love that it has music behind it. But I do love the way that she uses visuals in here. Okay, so it's not a picture, but it's the stat you need. And so that's really what she wanted to focus on there. But sometimes when a picture makes sense for the literacy rate, then she's going to use a picture for that. But it's those stats that you're trying to communicate. So use a picture that helps you with that. And then when she got further into the fun stuff part, that's when it became just the picture of whatever it is you're talking about. So, I mean, I can pretty much tell this one's about poverty. This one's about whale sharks. This one's about one of the languages that they speak. This one's about what's important in their manufacturing.